At 11:47 p.m. on September 15, 2021, Isabella Rodriguez sent what everyone believed was her final text message. Going for a night swim. The water looks perfect under the moonlight. 3 hours later, her body would be pulled from Lake Serenity. Her husband would become a widower, and a $2 million life insurance policy would make him very, very rich. But what happens when the dead don't stay dead? What happens when your own technology becomes the witness you thought you'd silenced forever? Stay with me, because this story will change how you think about trust, technology, and the lies we tell ourselves about the people we love. Welcome to Shadows by Berry. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a case that proves sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one who knows you best. This is a story about a woman who couldn't speak for herself, but whose husband's own surveillance system became her voice from beyond the grave. If you're new here, we cover real cases with respect for victims and their families. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because we upload new content every day. Throughout this story, I want you to ask yourself one question. How well do you really know the person sleeping next to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments as we go. Isabella Sofia Rodriguez was 34 years old when she died. Born in Phoenix, Arizona, she was the kind of woman who made everyone around her feel seen, heard, and valued. After losing her parents in a car crash when she was just 8 years old, Isabella was raised by her immigrant grandparents, who taught her that healing others was the highest calling. She put herself through nursing school, working 3 jobs: coffee shop mornings, restaurant nights, and weekend hospital shifts. By 30, she'd become one of Phoenix's most respected pediatric nurses. By 33, she'd opened her own private practice, specializing in childhood trauma recovery. Isabella had an infectious laugh that could fill a room. She hosted Sunday family dinners where her tiny apartment somehow fit 15 people. She was the person everyone called when they needed comfort, advice, or just someone to listen. But there was one area of Isabella's life that wasn't quite complete. Love. She dated, sure, but nothing ever felt right. Nothing ever felt safe. Until she met Ryan Mitchell. Ryan was 38, quiet, where Isabella was vibrant, methodical, where she was spontaneous. He seemed to balance everything about her that felt too much for other people. They met at a medical conference in 2020, where Ryan was consulting on pediatric monitoring systems for his tech company. He didn't make a big entrance, didn't try to impress her with flashy stories or expensive gestures. Instead, he listened. When Isabella talked about her work with traumatized children, Ryan asked thoughtful questions. When she mentioned her grandparents, he remembered their names weeks later. Their courtship was patient, careful. Flowers every Friday, not roses, but sunflowers, because he'd noticed Isabella had them in her office. Text messages that weren't demanding but supportive. Hope your day is bringing you as much joy as you bring others. Isabella's family loved him. Well, most of them did. Isabella's younger sister Sophia wasn't convinced. He's too perfect, Isabella, she'd say. Nobody remembers everything. Nobody always has the right answer. Nobody is that patient. But Isabella brushed off Sophia's concerns. She'd waited so long for someone who didn't try to change her, who didn't need her to be smaller, quieter, less. Ryan seemed to love exactly who she was. By early 2021, they were talking about marriage, children, a future. That's when Ryan surprised her with what seemed like the perfect next step. In July 2021, Ryan presented Isabella with keys to their dream home, a lakefront property on Lake Serenity, 2 hours outside Phoenix. "I know how much you love the water," he'd said, "and I want us to build our family somewhere peaceful." Isabella cried when she saw it, a modest house with huge windows overlooking crystal-clear water. A dock where they could sit and watch sunsets. A place where their future children could learn to swim, to fish, to find peace. What Isabella didn't know was that Ryan had been planning this purchase for over a year. Long before they'd even talked about living together, what she also didn't know was that Ryan Mitchell wasn't his real name. Here's where our story takes a turn that even experienced investigators didn't see coming, because while Isabella was falling in love with Ryan Mitchell didn't actually exist. The man Isabella married was born James Parker in Denver, Colorado. He'd reinvented himself completely after his first wife's death. In 2018, netted him $800,000 in life insurance money. Lisa Parker had died during what police called a tragic hiking accident. She'd supposedly fallen from a cliff during a solo hike, something her family insisted she'd never do. Lisa was terrified of heights. But there were no witnesses, no evidence of foul play, and James had an alibi. He was supposedly at work, backed up by security footage and co-workers. The case was closed as accidental death. James collected the insurance money, grieved publicly for exactly the right amount of time, then disappeared. He resurfaced in Nevada as Ryan Mitchell, complete with a new social security number, business licenses, and a carefully crafted history. His tech company was real, successful even, but it was built on blood money. Now let's talk about Ryan's specialty. His company didn't just install regular security systems, they created what he called invisible monitoring. Infrared cameras so small they looked like screws, motion sensors built into light fixtures, audio recording embedded in smoke detectors. The irony is almost poetic. Ryan's entire business was built around the idea that people needed to watch everything, record everything, to stay safe. He just never planned for his own system to be watching him. 3 months before Isabella's death, Ryan did something very clever. He convinced Isabella they needed to increase her life insurance policy. "We're planning a family," he'd said, holding her hands across their kitchen table. "What if something happens to you during childbirth? What if there's an accident? I want to make sure any children we have are protected." Isabella, always thinking of others, agreed immediately. She signed the papers Ryan brought home, trusting that he'd handled the details correctly. She thought the beneficiary was listed as Future Family Trust. It wasn't. Ryan had forged the documents to make himself the sole beneficiary of a $2.1 million policy with double indemnity for accidental death. But Ryan made one crucial mistake. In his meticulous planning, he forgot about something his own company had installed: a cloud backup system that automatically saved all surveillance footage for 6 months. The system he'd designed to make their home the safest place on Earth was about to become the most dangerous place for him. By September 2021, Isabella was beginning to sense something was wrong. She couldn't put her finger on it, but Ryan's behavior had shifted. He asked strange questions about her work schedule. He wanted to know exactly when she'd be home, who she was meeting, where she'd be going. He'd started asking about her swimming habits too. Did she ever swim alone? Had she ever gone out at night? What time did she usually exercise? Isabella found these questions odd, but she answered them. After all, they were planning a life together. Couples should know these things about each other, right? On September 10th, 5 days before her death, Isabella made a discovery that chilled her to the bone. She'd been looking for their insurance papers to add them to her filing system when she found Ryan's real documents hidden in his office. She saw his real name. She saw records of his first wife's death. She saw search history on his computer. How long after spouse death to remarry, second marriage insurance policies, accidental drowning statistics. Isabella didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she did something smart. She started documenting everything. She wrote down the strange questions, the odd behaviors, her growing fears. She hid these notes in a place Ryan would never think to look. Inside the lining of her childhood teddy bear, stored in their bedroom closet. She also made a decision. She was going to leave him, but she was going to be smart about it. Isabella planned to stay late at work on September 15th, then drive to Sophia's house to tell her everything. They would figure out how to leave safely, how to contact police, how to disappear if necessary. Ryan had other plans. September 15th, 2021. Ryan told Isabella he was leaving for a business trip to San Diego. He'd be gone for 3 days, he said, meeting with potential clients for his security company. Isabella hugged him goodbye that morning, not knowing she was embracing her killer. But Ryan never went to San Diego. Instead, he drove to a motel 20 minutes from their lake house and checked in under his old name, James Parker. He paid cash. He kept the receipt. At 6 p.m., Isabella texted Ryan from work. Long day with the kids, heading home around 9. Love you. Ryan texted back, safe travels, beautiful. Can't wait to hold you again. It was the last real communication they would ever have. What happened next was captured by Ryan's own surveillance system, though no one would think to look at that footage for months. At 9:30 p.m., Isabella arrived home. She parked in their driveway, gathered her things, and walked to the front door. The infrared cameras recorded her every step. What Isabella didn't know was that Ryan was already inside, waiting. He'd returned to the house at 8:45 p.m., parking in their garage so the neighbors wouldn't see his car. He'd let himself in through the back door and prepared everything he needed. Ryan had access to veterinary sedatives through Isabella's medical connections, a contact she'd mentioned who helped with animal therapy programs at the children's hospital. He'd been planning this moment for weeks. When Isabella walked through the front door, Ryan was there with a syringe. "Ryan, I thought you were in San Diego," were the last words Isabella ever spoke. The cameras captured Ryan carrying Isabella's unconscious body from the house to the lake at 11:30 p.m. She was still alive, but barely conscious. The sedative was carefully calibrated, enough to incapacitate her, not enough to kill her immediately. Ryan wanted the drowning to look real. At 11:47 p.m., using Isabella's phone, Ryan sent the text message that would become famous. "Going for a night swim. The water looks perfect under the moonlight." Then he carried Isabella into Lake Serenity and held her under until she stopped breathing. Ryan stayed at the lake for another hour, making sure the scene looked right. He scattered Isabella's clothes on the dock. He put her phone in the house, charging as if she'd plugged it in before going for her swim. At 1:15 a.m., Ryan drove back to his motel. At 2:43 a.m., a jogger found Isabella's body floating near the shore. The 911 call came into Ryan's motel room at 3:22 a.m. He answered on the first ring as if he'd been awake, waiting. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Detective Amanda Foster with Phoenix PD. I'm sorry to inform you that your wife has been found deceased in Lake Serenity. We need you to come identify the body." Ryan's performance was perfect. He broke down on the phone. He could barely speak through his sobs. He kept saying, No, this can't be real. We were going to start a family." By the time Ryan arrived at the morgue, he'd worked himself into such a state that paramedics had to check his blood pressure. He collapsed twice. He had to be sedated. The media loved it. Here was a devoted husband, destroyed by the tragic loss of his beloved wife. The story went viral. Tech executive's wife dies in late-night swimming accident. Husband's heartbreak goes viral after wife's tragic drowning. Ryan played the role perfectly for months. He started a grief support group. He posted touching tributes on social media. He visited Isabella's grave every week, always bringing sunflowers. But Isabella's sister Sophia wasn't buying it. Sophia Rodriguez knew her sister. She knew Isabella was a strong swimmer, but she also knew Isabella's biggest fear: swimming alone at night. When Isabella was 12, she'd nearly drowned during a family camping trip. She'd gotten caught in an undertow at dusk and barely made it back to shore. From that day forward, Isabella never ever went swimming alone after sunset. She'd made Sophia promise to never let her do it, even as an adult. Isabella would rather die than swim alone at night, Sophia told Detective Foster. And I mean that literally. It makes no sense. Detective Foster had initially classified Isabella's death as accidental drowning. The evidence seemed clear. Isabella had gone for a late-night swim, possibly after drinking, though toxicology was inconclusive due to water degradation, and had drowned. It was tragic, but not suspicious. But Sophia kept pushing. She filed formal requests for all evidence. She hired her own investigator. She wouldn't let anyone forget that something was wrong with Ryan's story. 4 months after Isabella's death, Sophia made a discovery that changed everything. She was cleaning out Isabella's belongings when she found something Ryan had missed. Hidden inside Isabella's childhood teddy bear were handwritten notes documenting Ryan's strange behavior in the weeks before her death. The notes detailed his questions about her swimming, his interest in her schedule, his research into life insurance policies. But most importantly, the notes revealed that Isabella had discovered Ryan's real identity. She knew about James Parker, she knew about Lisa Parker's death, and she was planning to leave him. "If something happens to me," Isabella had written, "look at Ryan's computer, look at his real name, look at his first wife." Sophia took the notes straight to Detective Foster, who immediately reopened the case. This time, they looked at Ryan's home security system. What they found was devastating. The infrared cameras Ryan had installed to protect his home had recorded everything. Time-stamped footage showed Ryan returning home during his supposed business trip. It showed him carrying Isabella's unconscious body from the house to the lake. It showed him staging the scene, waiting, then returning to dispose of evidence. Ryan's own technology had betrayed him. On February 14, 2022, Valentine's Day, police arrested Ryan Mitchell at Isabella's gravesite, where he was laying flowers and filming himself for social media. Ryan Mitchell, you're under arrest for the murder of Isabella Rodriguez. The look on his face when Detective Foster showed him the surveillance footage was captured on body cam. Complete shock, then desperate calculation, then the slow realization that his perfect crime had been undone by his own security system. "This can't be right," he kept saying. "The cameras weren't supposed to. I disabled. This isn't possible." But it was possible, and it was all recorded. The trial of Ryan Mitchell became a media sensation, not because of the crime itself, but because of how it was solved. For the first time in legal history, a murder victim's own home security system had provided a complete video record of her killing. The prosecution had something extraordinarily rare: actual footage of the murder being committed. The jury watched as Ryan carried Isabella's unconscious body to the lake. They saw him stage the scene. They heard the audio of him making fake phone calls to establish his alibi. Ryan's defense team tried to argue that Isabella had committed suicide, that Ryan was only trying to protect her memory by making it look like an accident. But the video evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of insurance fraud, guilty of identity theft. Ryan Mitchell was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. With Ryan's conviction, authorities in Colorado reopened Lisa Parker's case. Her death was reclassified as homicide, and Ryan was charged with her murder as well. Isabella Rodriguez couldn't speak for herself after September 15, 2021. But in a twist of technological justice, her husband's own surveillance system became her voice, telling the world exactly what happened in those final moments. Sofia Rodriguez established the Isabella Sofia Foundation, helping families recognize signs of domestic financial abuse and supporting survivors who escape dangerous relationships. Isabella always said her job was to help people heal, Sofia said at the foundation's launch. Even in death, she's still doing that. Ryan thought he'd committed the perfect crime. He'd learned from his first murder, improved his methods, eliminated human witnesses. But he forgot one crucial detail. His own cameras were watching. In the end, Isabella Rodriguez did come back from the dead. She came back through ones and zeros, through pixels and timestamps, through the very technology her husband had used to trap her. Justice has many voices. Sometimes it speaks through the machines we build to feel safe. What aspect of this case shocked you most? How do you think Isabella found the strength to document her fears? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more cases where technology helps victims find their voice. Thank you for taking the time to learn Isabella's story. Until next time, trust your instincts. They might save your life.